Hi there. Let's talk about something that's always in the news but might seem a bit confusing: inflation. What is it? How does it work? And most importantly, how does it impact your everyday life? What is inflation? Inflation is a term we hear all the time, but what does it really mean, and how does it impact your everyday life? Imagine going to the grocery store and realizing that something as basic as a loaf of bread now costs $2.50 instead of the $2 it was last year. That's inflation in action, when the value of money decreases, and the same amount buys you less. It doesn't stop at bread. Inflation affects everything: gas, rent, clothes, your morning coffee, and even the cost of streaming services. But why does it happen? Inflation usually occurs for a few reasons. One is demand pull inflation, where high demand for products or services meets a limited supply. Picture everyone wanting the latest gaming console, but there aren't enough to go around. Prices go up because people are willing to pay more. Another reason is cost push inflation, which happens when the cost of producing goods rises, and businesses pass those costs on to you. For example, if coffee bean prices soar, your latte gets more expensive. Then there's the money supply factor. If a government prints too much money, it leads to inflation because more cash in circulation makes each dollar less valuable. But what does this mean for you? Inflation impacts your daily life in significant ways. First, your money loses value. Imagine you saved $1,000 last year. If inflation is at 5%, that $1,000 now only buys what $950 could have before. Then there's the rising cost of living. Rent goes up, groceries cost more, and utility bills climb, making it feel like you're working harder just to keep up. Wages often don't keep pace with inflation, meaning your paycheck doesn't stretch as far. On the flip side, borrowing money during inflation can work in your favor. If you have a loan with a fixed interest rate, the money you owe becomes less valuable over time, effectively reducing the burden of your debt. To make this more relatable, think about gas prices. When inflation spikes, gas costs often rise, hitting commuters especially hard. Grocery bills are another example. What used to cost $100 a week might now cost $120 for the same items. Even your Netflix subscription isn't safe, as companies raise prices to cover their own rising costs. So, how can you protect yourself from inflation? Start by budgeting wisely. Track your spending, cut unnecessary expenses, and use tools like budgeting apps to help. Investing is another key strategy. Assets like stocks, real estate, or inflation-protected savings bonds can grow over time and keep your money ahead of inflation. If you're employed, consider negotiating a raise to keep up with the rising cost of living. And instead of keeping all your money in a basic savings account, explore higher yield options that can offer better returns. Here's an interesting fact: a little inflation is actually good for the economy. It encourages spending and investing because people know prices will rise over time. But when inflation gets too high or too low, it creates economic problems. The takeaway here is that inflation isn't just an abstract concept, it directly affects your day-to-day life. From the gas you put in your car to the groceries in your fridge, inflation shapes how much you spend and save. The good news is, with some knowledge and smart planning, you can handle it effectively. So, the next time you hear about inflation, you'll know exactly how it works and how to stay ahead of it.